How can a project be 90%, 20%, and 0% complete at the same time, and all three of those metrics are correct? In this video, I'm going to break down why percentage complete is probably the most misunderstood metric in construction, and I'm going to give you a dead simple system to fix it, even if you're not cost loading or resource loading your schedules. So consider a project like the one on screen. It's a 10-month project, 10 million in total value, but the project consists of two portions. The first is a 1 million rand building works portion, and the second is just a piece of equipment that needs to be placed. So at this moment in time, it is month 2 in the project. The equipment has arrived and, let's accept for the sake of this exercise, has been claimed successfully, will be paid, etc. So don't go into the intricacies of materials on site and whatnot. That's just the example. We accept that the value of 9 million is claimed and it's going to be paid, or it is paid. So let's break it down. At this stage, we can say that the time elapsed of this project is 2 months out of the 10 months. So that's 20%. That is true. Secondly, if we look at the value claim from a value perspective, 9 million of the available 10 million has now been certified. So it's accurate to say that from a cost perspective or a value perspective, 90% of the project is complete. Then lastly, from an effort-based perspective, the building works hasn't really started. So in that sense, we say effort or man hours spent on this project is 0. Maybe there were some man hours in offloading the equipment. Again, that's negligible for the sake of the exercise. Let's just assume no true or real effort or man hours has been spent. That means that all three of those metrics, as I've provided them to you, are correct in this instance. And this is usually where the confusion starts on a project. So that I always joke and say that the picture there in the background, that's actual footage of me in a meeting where professionals now try and compare or reconcile these values with each other. So they will typically remark that we see on the program, guys, you are 0% complete. However, 20% of the time has already elapsed. Therefore, you are behind. So they make these conclusions. Or they would sometimes say, we can see that in terms of progress, you are quite ahead, but in terms of value spent, you are behind. The value is only at 20% and you've actually done 60% of the work. So that means you must be lying to us, or that means your program is wrong or something. So they try and compare these metrics with each other, and that leads to a lot of confusion. So many years ago, I worked for a contractor, and this same situation came up on a very large housing development project that they were working on. And the parties were sitting in this meeting and they were fighting, each and everyone advancing their own argument. And I realized at that moment, everybody's actually correct. Everybody is looking at this thing from different angles, but everybody's correct. Now, usually as professionals, we make two big mistakes when it comes to progress measurements. I'm going to detail them for you. So the first mistake we make is that we focus or forget the fact that we are looking at actuals, the actuals of 3 different metrics. And this is very important because to make meaningful sense of these metrics, we need to compare them with the planned values of the same metrics. And this is the first mistake professionals make, is they try and compare the actuals between metrics. And there's not always a comparison. I think most people are misled by the fact that, yes, right at the beginning of a project, you'd be at 0% and your work-based will be at 0%. And right at the end of a project, you'll have 100% time elapsed and your work-based ought to be 100% as well. So we get misled by the fact that those two metrics seem to align. But the thing is, they don't align for the remainder of the duration of your project. It's only at those 2 points, and that makes it the same as a broken watch. So a broken watch will tell you the time correctly twice in a 24-hour cycle. That's not a good watch to use. So that's why we can't really compare these values with each other. We need to focus on the plan, and those are the values that I haven't given to you in this example. And that's why it seemed so confusing, the fact that we have all 3 of these metrics being true at the same time. But they don't mean anything if we don't have the planned values. So if we look at the planned values, for instance, and we look at the planned value in terms of payments or interim payment certificates, you'll see that somebody or this contractor or this project manager planned to have the machinery or the equipment delivered in month 2, and therefore the planned value was already 9 million, and thereafter the building works would have started. The second one is if we look from an effort-based calculation, the contractor also knew that by month 2, they're not going to start with the building work. So the effort or the man hours spent will still be 0%. And only in month 3 will it start to ramp up to month 10 at 100%. So when this is known, these figures make a lot more sense, because now we can compare value-based and say, while we plan to be 90% complete, we are actually 90% complete. Therefore, we are on schedule in terms of value. Work-based, we plan to be 0%. We are at 0%. Therefore, the variance is nothing. There's no variance. And hence, the contract is on schedule. Now, the second problem, or the second part of this problem, is that we usually have inaccurate planned information. Typically in South Africa, we don't always accurately estimate the interim payment certificates as a planned value. Where it's done, it's not always accurate. It's based on a rough order of magnitude estimate. And then secondly, the values that we get from our effort-based calculations are usually just calculated from a program. Now, the problem with program values is that usually the project team will use this percentage complete value directly from a program or from the schedule. Now, what I want you to know is that Microsoft Project and Candy calculates their percentage complete values based on the volume and the duration of tasks below certain headings. And here you can already see I've got something like a procurement task, which has got a very high value in terms of duration, but very low value in terms of effort. So this is a lead time allowance. We're simply just waiting for this equipment to be delivered. But this will carry a lot of progress weight when I do my update in compiling that progress or percentage complete. So where you've got a lot of procurement tasks in a program, it may look like the contract is actually on schedule or doing very well in terms of progress, but the key effort milestones, they could simply miss that because you'll see these are smaller duration items, but actually they carry the most weight from a progress perspective. So let me demonstrate to you the difference here. What I've done is I've cost loaded this program. So all the costs of each item in terms of resources and materials are assigned. If we roll this up just to a high level, I'm going to show you the difference between an MS project calculation and a true, let's call it a much better value weighted calculation in terms of progress. So first up, we have the normal progress Microsoft project weights, for which they use the durations and let's call it the volume of tasks and the durations below it. So here you will see something like procurement actually carries a lot of weight in terms of progress. So if this task is complete, it'll contribute 15% to the total value of this project's progress. The same with overheads, which I told you is simply almost just a marker in my program, a placeholder for costs. So it doesn't actually carry any progress weight. This will contribute 22% to my total progress. Laying of the pipe, only 37% because and this might be the biggest part of this project. So if you look from a cost perspective, value weight, you'll see that overhead's actually very low, procurement very low, establishment very low. Laying of the pipe is where the bulk of my actual cost is going to lie. And when I look at progress, you would agree that this would be a much more accurate version of measuring completion than what we have over here on this end. All right, so how do we fix this? How can you apply this on your project? Let me show you a quick and easy way how you can do it. Even if you don't have a cost-loaded schedule, you don't need a cost-loaded schedule for this. So the steps are very simple. Step number 1, export your schedule from Microsoft Project to Excel or from Candy. Both these steps are very simple in both those software packages. If you are the principal agent, simply request this from the contractor. So what we need is just on the highest level, so they roll it up for you to the highest level, they export this with the works breakdown structure number, and then again, just make sure that all these levels below your execution level or the top level are on one level. In other words, you'll see I don't have sub-levels open here. The moment you've got sub-levels and sections, it becomes increasingly difficult to measure this. Rather just go for one level and the highest level that you can get. Once you've got this export, you simply paste this into this earned value tool of hours, and it'll automatically calculate those WBS levels for you, so you can check that all your subtasks are on one level and that the top level there is your execution level. Then step 2 is simply to assign the weights manually. So you can use man hours, you can use cost estimates, you can use your own experience just to go and assign a value-based weight to each of your subtasks and make sure that all weights add up to 100%. So in the earned value tracker here, you can see I've got a space there where I simply assign the weights. So overheads won't carry any weight, milestones no weight, procurement 2%, established 2%, 70, 20. So I just punched in these values. You'll see there's an automatic calculation. So everything that's colored in this sheet has got automatic calculations. So you don't have to tweak them or punch anything in. Just make sure that you punch in values in these open spaces. Step 3 is simply to perform your monthly tracking. So I'm going to show you how you can do this. You get your planned percentage values from the contractor, or if you're the contractor, you can extract that from the program. You add in your actual percentage progress values on each heading. I'll show you how to do that in Excel. And then you use that more accurate percentage complete metric for your reporting. So here's how you can do this practically. First step in the sheet is just to get the planned values. If your contractor does not know how to do this, I'll put a link below this video of how they can add this column into MS Project, or they can simply create a status date at the end of the month and simply update everything as predicted. This will also give you the planned values of these high-level items. Then for a particular month, they will now send you the update. So they can send this in PDF or just export it for you. If they've done a PDF, you can simply read these planned or percentage complete values from the program. You can simply read that into the sheet. So there we go. When I enter those values into the sheet, just remember that these two columns again are calculated. I've got a two hidden columns over here. Over here. That calculates the weights. So it does the weight calculation for you already. And then it gives you that earned value total for your execution. So planned versus earned value. And it gives you the variances between planned and actual of specific items. So here you can see we're slightly behind on schedule due to the fact that the pipeline is a bit behind. And now very importantly is that the total progress of our project over here on the execution line is in line with the weights that we have assigned to it. It's not just a program measure, and it doesn't take into account these items that doesn't carry any weight in terms of progress. So this is a much more accurate version, and this is something you can use in your progress reporting rather than just the program's value. And that is it, folks. No fancy software, no complicated imports. It's just the logic. You can use this system and it'll give you a much better output than what you've got currently in terms of just reading the programs and trusting those figures. Rather go with this into a meeting, into your reports, and best of all is that you can sit down with the contractor or the project sponsor beforehand and negotiate these weights so that everybody's on the same page of how these weights contribute towards total project percentage complete.